All right, so we've got Life's Amazing Secrets with us, and um, I got to admit, this book is everywhere these days. I mean, that's the story about Gaur Gopal Das and the Sambar, it just seems to follow him wherever he goes. But we're going deeper than just hype, right?
Yeah.
We're after like the real wisdom here, the stuff that can help us actually live better.
Yeah, it's like we're trying to take a shortcut to enlightenment or something, right? Trying to extract like
Wow.
the essence of ancient wisdom and apply it to like our modern lives,
Yeah.
all the chaos.
Exactly. So let's just dive right into these amazing secrets. So Gaur Gopal Das starts out with this analogy of life being like a car with four wheels: personal growth, relationships, work life, and social contribution. And we're going to focus on just the first two wheels today.
Okay.
Just those first two, leaving the others for you all to explore on your own time.
Sounds good. Yeah, those
Yeah.
first two are foundational, right? Like you can't really drive very smoothly if your personal life and your relationships are all messed up.
Yeah, totally. And speaking of things being messed up, Gaur Gopal Das introduces us to this guy named Harry, who seems to have it all, but he's really struggling inside. He's got the fancy Mumbai apartment, a successful consulting career, but he just can't seem to find happiness.
Yeah, I think Harry's story, it's like a reflection of, like a bigger societal thing. We're so focused on achievements and, external stuff that we kind of forget about how to, be peaceful on the insides. And so
Yeah.
many people achieve like success on paper, but still feel empty inside.
It's like that classic saying, right? Money can't buy happiness.
Right.
But Gaur Gopal Das doesn't just leave us with that. He really dives into gratitude as like a key to unlocking happiness. And he tells that story about Gaharvika and her father.
Mhm.
We talk about a powerful example of choosing gratitude, even when facing some serious fear, right?
Yeah, and it's not even just about like, feeling grateful. It's about like really cultivating gratitude in your life. And that's where like the gratitude log comes in. Have you ever tried keeping one of those?
I've dabbled in it, but I wasn't super consistent. What I find really fascinating is Gaur Gopal Das's idea about those 3 R's of gratitude: recognizing, remembering, and reciprocating.
Hmm.
So it's not just about, noticing the good things, but like actively engaging with it and letting it shape your actions.
Exactly. Remembering acts of kindness, taking the time to reflect on them, that's what really makes it stick.
Yeah.
And then reciprocating. I mean, that's where the real magic is. It creates this like ripple effect of positivity. You know what I mean?
You're not just like soaking up the good, you're actually putting more good out into the world.
Exactly.
But, it's easy to talk about gratitude, but putting it into practice consistently, that's where the real challenge is.
Oh, absolutely. It's about shifting your mindset from scarcity to abundance. Training yourself to like actually notice and appreciate all the good, even when things are tough.
Yeah, it's like building a muscle, right?
Yeah.
And that definitely takes effort.
Oh, for sure.
Now, building on that idea of inner strength, Gaur Gopal Das talks about how important spiritual strength is, especially when it comes to overcoming worry. And he even shares that anecdote about his own experience with that viral video. How it first kind of caused him distress, but then led to something really positive?
Yeah, it's a good example of how we can like reframe, challenging situations instead of getting stuck in that like why me spiral. He kind of uses that why worry principle to get a new perspective.
Okay, so break that down for me. What is that why worry principle all about, and how can we actually use it?
So it's all about analyzing the situation and asking yourself what parts are actually in my control and what parts are just totally out of my hands.
Mm.
It's about focusing all your energy on the things you can actually change and letting go of the rest.
So it's about like taking action, not just passively accepting whatever life throws at you.
Exactly. You get back a sense of agency when you focus on what you can do. And it's not about ignoring problems. It's about approaching them with like a clear and empowered mindset.
That makes sense. So instead of, spiraling into anxiety,
Yeah.
we step back, we analyze, and then we create a plan for the things we can control.
Right.
Makes a lot of sense.
Think about a worry that's been on your mind lately. Could you apply this principle to it? Where do you actually have some control?
This is making me think about this project I've got going on at work. It's been stressing me out. I'm so focused on, all the ways it could go wrong that I'm almost frozen by fear. But if I apply this principle, maybe I can like break it down into smaller, more manageable steps.
Right. See, that's the power of this principle. It gives us a way to move from just worry to action. And action, even small steps, is what really helps with that feeling of helplessness, that often just fuels anxiety.
Okay, so now Gaur Gopal Das is taking us deeper into this realm of spiritual practice. And he introduces this hierarchy: Vishar, Achar, and Prapar. I have to admit those terms were a little intimidating at first.
Yeah, I think it helps to just break them down. So Vichara is like the foundation. It's about understanding the philosophy, the principles. Achar is where the rubber meets the road, putting those principles into practice in everyday life. And then prachar is about like inspiring others through your example, through the changes you've made.
So it's not enough to just read about it, right? We have to
No,
actually live it. And by doing that, we can become living examples for others.
exactly. And to really show you how our minds just like fixate on the negative, even when we're surrounded by good stuff. Gaur Gopal Das tells that funny story about the cumin seed stuck in his teeth.
Oh, it's such a relatable example. We've all been there, right? When we get so focused on one tiny annoyance that we totally miss all the good things happening around us.
Right. It reminds us that our minds have this negativity bias. We're just wired to focus on threats and problems, but we can train ourselves to like counteract that by, making a conscious effort to cultivate gratitude and positive thinking.
So it's like we need to actively rewire our brains to focus on the good, the positive, the blessings. And Gaur Gopal Das suggests things like meditation as a way to do this.
Exactly. Meditation helps us calm all that mental chatter, develop better self-awareness, and cultivate a more peaceful, balanced internal state.
And from that solid foundation of personal growth, we can move into the second wheel relationships. And Gaur Gopal Das starts this section off with the story of Manasi, who has this really negative experience at a temple. She feels judged and misunderstood, which I think is something we can all relate to on some level.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's a pretty universal experience, right? That feeling of being misjudged or misunderstood, especially by people we kind of expect compassion from. And the way Gaur Gopal Das responds to Manasi when she tells him about it, it's like a masterclass in sensitive communication.
He really emphasizes how important it is to listen, to understand, not just to reply. Putting aside our own judgments and trying to see the world through their eyes.
Yeah, and that takes practice, don't you think? We're so quick to just jump in with our own opinions and interpretations without even really getting their perspective.
Oh, totally. I've been guilty of that countless times. It's like
Right.
we're so focused on thinking of our response that we're not really present in the conversation.
Totally. And think about how different things would be if we all just made that effort to listen with the intention of understanding. It could totally transform our relationships, personal and professional.
Now, this next idea is one I found really interesting. Gaur Gopal Das talks about treating even inanimate objects with respect, and he tells that anecdote about kicking the bucket.
What's so interesting about that concept is that it challenges us to look at our own attitudes and how they show up even in the tiniest actions. It's like a test for our overall respect and consideration.
So the way we treat our things could reflect how we treat people, even subconsciously.
Exactly. If we're careless with the things around us, it could be a sign that we're not really tuned into the impact our actions have on others. It's a subtle but powerful connection.
Makes you really stop and think, like how mindful am I being about the way I interact with everything around me, even the smallest details?
Right. It's a reminder that mindfulness isn't just about meditating. It's about bringing awareness to every aspect of our lives, our interactions, even our relationship with our stuff.
Okay, moving on. Gaur Gopal Das really emphasizes this idea of having a virtuous vision in our relationships.
Right. And I think it's important to define what he means by that. It's about choosing to focus on the positive things about someone, their good qualities and strengths, instead of dwelling on their flaws or mistakes.
He uses that funny story about the dog doing the shopping to show how we tend to overlook all the good things people do and instead focus on their shortcomings.
Yeah, classic negativity bias at play again. We're wired to notice what's wrong, what's missing. But when we consciously choose to focus on the good, we change our perspective and create a more positive and supportive environment.
He also contrasts this with that real-life example of Aditya Birla, the business tycoon, who made a point of acknowledging an employee's strengths before addressing a mistake.
That's a really smart strategy. By starting with appreciation, you build a foundation of trust and goodwill, and it makes the person way more open to constructive feedback. It's about acknowledging the gold before you point out the dirt.
I love that gold before dirt. It's a great reminder that everyone has both right, and we have the choice of which one we focus on.
Exactly. And that choice makes a huge difference in our relationships. It shapes how we communicate, the level of trust and connection.
So it's not about ignoring problems or pretending they don't exist. It's about approaching them from a place of understanding and appreciation.
Right. Recognizing that we're all works in progress and we all have areas where we can grow, but that growth happens best in an environment of support and encouragement, where we feel seen for our strengths as well as our weaknesses.
And that leads perfectly into Gaur Gopal Das's advice on how to offer corrective feedback. And he talks about investing in appreciation and trust before you withdraw with criticism.
It's like that analogy he uses about mutual funds. You wouldn't expect to withdraw money from an investment you haven't made right. Relationships are kind of similar. We need to make deposits of appreciation, love, understanding before we offer critique without causing damage.
And he uses that story of Jack and Jill's soup to illustrate this point.
Hmm.
Remember, Jack comes home tired, and Jill has made this big pot of soup. She's all excited about it. But when Jack tries it, he thinks it's bland.
Right, a perfect setup for a potentially hurtful moment.
Totally.
But Jack handles it perfectly. He considers Jill's feelings, her excitement, and finds a way to offer feedback without being mean.
It's a great example of how to give feedback with sensitivity and tact. He doesn't lie or say the soup is amazing, but he finds a way to offer suggestions for improvement without making Jill feel like a failure.
Exactly. It's about choosing your words carefully, thinking about timing and context, and always focusing on the behavior, not the person. It's about offering support, not judgment.
So before we offer feedback, we need to ask ourselves, have I invested enough in this relationship to make a withdrawal? Have I built a strong foundation of trust and appreciation that can handle a bit of constructive criticism?
That's a really good question to ask ourselves before we have any potentially difficult conversation.
All right, now we're getting into some heavier stuff, forgiveness. Gaur Gopal tells the story of Harry's marriage problems that end up with his wife asking for a divorce. It's a really sad situation, and Harry's understandably devastated.
It's a situation that a lot of people can relate to, unfortunately. The pain of betrayal, the confusion, the anger, those are really strong emotions that can be incredibly hard to deal with.
And Gaur Gopal doesn't offer any easy answers, He acknowledges how complex forgiveness is, especially when someone's been really hurt.
But he does offer some guiding principles that can help us through the process even when it feels impossible. He talks about trying to understand the other person's point of view, to see the situation through their eyes.
He also talks about the importance of separating the episode from the person. It's about recognizing that even good people make mistakes, and that holding on to anger and resentment only hurts us more than it hurts them.
Right, and he suggests finding a higher purpose as motivation for forgiveness. Maybe it's the well-being of your kids, or preserving a community, or even just your own personal growth and healing.
It's about recognizing that forgiveness is ultimately an act of self-love. It's about freeing ourselves from that burden of anger and resentment and choosing to move forward with grace and compassion.
And it's important to remember that forgiveness doesn't mean you're condoning what happened. It's about realizing that holding on to anger and resentment just keeps you stuck in the past and prevents you from healing and moving on.
So forgiveness is a journey, and it's not always easy. But Gaur Gopal reminds us that it's a journey worth taking for our own well-being and for the health of our relationships.
And with that, we've covered a lot in our exploration of those first two wheels of life: personal growth and relationships. We've talked about the power of gratitude, the importance of spiritual strength, the art of sensitive communication, the challenges of forgiveness, and the huge impact our mindset has on our interactions.
But we're not done yet. We still got 2 more wheels to explore: work life and social contribution. So join us in part 2 as we delve into Gaur Gopal wisdom on finding purpose and fulfillment in our work and making a real difference in the world around us. Okay, so ready to shift gears a bit. We spent a lot of time on personal growth and relationships, but now we're moving on to that third wheel of life, work life.
Yeah, it's interesting how Gaur Gopal connects all these different parts of life. It's not like we can just separate them and be like, okay, now I'm just focusing on work. I'll deal with my feelings later.
It's all connected, right? Totally. It's like driving a car. You neglect one wheel, the whole thing's going to fall apart. And let's face it, work can be a huge source of stress.
Yeah.
Throws things out of balance. Gaur Gopal actually starts out by addressing a question I think a lot of us have. How do we deal with that competitive work environment while staying true to our values?
It's tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah, he kind of reframes that whole idea of competition. He says that the real competition, like the one that matters, is the one with yourself. Not about trying to beat the person next to you, but becoming the best version of you.
Yeah, but that's easier said than done, right? Especially these days when everyone's hustling and looking for external validation. How do we even figure out what that best version looks like?
That's where self-discovery comes in. Gaur Gopal talks about that Japanese concept of ikigai, that sweet spot where your passions, your skills, your values, and the world needs all come together. He breaks it down into 4 questions. What do you love? What are you good at? What does the world need? And what can you get paid for? When you find that intersection, that's where the real fulfillment is.
He uses the story of Siraj, that young musician, to really show this. He discovers his passion early on, and his family really supports him. They create an environment where he can truly thrive. I think that's so important. It highlights how important it is to have support and encouragement in helping people find and follow their passions.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
We don't exist in a vacuum, right? Having a supportive family, mentors, even colleagues who see your potential and encourage you, it makes all the difference. It helps you really step into who you are.
I can already hear some people saying, yeah, that's all nice and idealistic, but the real world is tough. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there. How does Gaur Gopal Das address that more cynical view?
He tackles it head on. He challenges those common ideas about spirituality at work. Some people think being spiritual means you lack ambition or that embracing those values makes you weak in a competitive environment.
Right.
But he says it's actually the opposite. True spiritual strength comes from aligning your actions with your values, choosing integrity and compassion even when it's hard. He uses Arjuna from the Bhagavad Gita to show this. Remember Arjuna? He hesitates to fight in that battle against his own family. But his compassion was actually misplaced there. Not fighting would have just made the injustice and suffering continue.
So it's not about being passive or avoiding conflict. Sometimes true compassion means taking a stand even when it's uncomfortable.
Exactly. It's about acting with courage and wisdom even when you're facing tough choices to try and create a more just and harmonious world.
And he also uses that story of Jamin the musician, who faces some pretty intense competition, right? To show this point, he comes up against this rival who's willing to sabotage him to get ahead. It's a harsh reminder that not everyone plays fair.
Oh, for sure. But even when faced with that kind of behavior, Gaur Gopal Das says we should stay true to our values. He says true success isn't about winning no matter what. It's about doing things the right way. It's about choosing integrity even when it's the harder path.
He also brings in an example from sports where the pressure to win can make people cheat and do unethical things.
Yeah, it reminds us that this pressure exists everywhere, not just in sports. But real fulfillment comes from giving it your all, striving for excellence, while staying true to who you are.
So how do we balance this need to compete to strive for success with that desire to live with integrity and spiritual growth?
Gaur Gopal Das says we need to shift our focus from external validation to internal fulfillment. You know, true happiness comes from aligning your actions with your values, doing work that has meaning and purpose for you.
It's about finding that inner harmony where your work is an expression of who you are, not just a means to an end.
Exactly. And he offers some really practical advice on how to do this. He says we need to cultivate self-awareness to understand our strengths, weaknesses, and what we're passionate about. He also talks about the importance of finding mentors, people who've been there before, who can offer wisdom and support.
And it's a journey, right? Not a destination. We're constantly evolving and changing our understanding of ourselves and our purpose.
Absolutely. Now let's move from that individual focus of work life to the broader idea of social contribution. That's the fourth and final wheel. Gaur Gopal Das uses this really cool analogy, the ice cream versus the candle.
Oh, I love that analogy. It perfectly captures what selfless service is all about. You know, ice cream, it's all about indulging yourself. But a candle, it gives light to others before it melts away. It's like a powerful reminder that true happiness comes from shifting our focus from me to we.
Gaur Gopal Das suggests that by serving others, we actually enrich our own lives. It's like our actions have this ripple effect. By helping others, we create a more positive and harmonious world for everyone.
It's about recognizing that we're all connected and that our actions, even the small ones, can have a big impact.
He does warn us about compassion fatigue, though. If we give all our energy to helping others without taking care of ourselves, we'll eventually burn out.
Right. That's why all four wheels are so important. We have to nurture ourselves, our personal growth, our relationships, our well-being, so that we can effectively help others. It's all about balance.
Yeah, and he emphasizes that family is often a natural starting point for selfless service. He tells that story about Lata, who goes above and beyond to save her husband's life. It's a powerful example of the strength and resilience that love can inspire.
Lata's story is so moving, but Gaur Gopal Das also challenges us to extend our compassion beyond our immediate family, to our community, and to the world.
He shares that anecdote about the terrible fire in Mumbai and how the community came together to help. It really shows you the power of collective action.
And he tells the story of his friend Brigadier Sunil Kumar NV, an Army officer whose whole life is about selfless service.
It's inspiring to see how people from all different walks of life can make a difference through acts of service, both big and small.
And I love how Gaur Gopal Das reminds us that true service doesn't have to be these grand gestures. It's often the small, everyday acts of kindness, compassion, and generosity that make the biggest impact in the world.
And as we start to wrap up our deep dive into life's amazing secrets, Gaur Gopal Das leaves us with this final thought-provoking reminder. True service reflects our love for God, and that love is expressed through right action, right intention, and right mood.
It's about approaching our work, our relationships, our service to the world with a sense of purpose, integrity, and love.
Okay, so we've made it through 3 of the 4 wheels of life: personal growth, relationships, and work life. But like Gaur Gopal Das keeps reminding us, there's one more crucial wheel we got to talk about: social contribution.
Yeah, it's like he's given us this awesome map for living a balanced and happy life. And now we're like zooming out to see how all our individual journeys fit into something much bigger than ourselves.
What really strikes me is how Gaur Gopal Das blends ancient wisdom with modern day examples. It makes these concepts feel so much more relatable and relevant.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He doesn't just tell you what to do. He shows you how to live it through stories and examples you can actually connect with.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into life's amazing secrets,
Yeah.
let's go back to that powerful image of the 4 wheels working together.
Yeah. Each one's got a vital role, and if you neglect one, it throws the whole vehicle off balance. You can't just compartmentalize your life and think, oh, I'll make up for my lack of personal growth by working harder or doing more charity work.
Right. It's about finding that balance, that harmony between all 4 wheels.
For sure. So as we've been exploring all these ideas, what stood out to you the most? What's the biggest takeaway?
Honestly, it's that feeling of interconnectedness that Gaur Gopal Das keeps emphasizing.
Huh.
It's not just separate areas of life. They all affect each other. The way you approach your personal growth, it affects your relationships, your work, your ability to contribute to the world.
Yeah, it's like this ripple effect. When you cultivate inner peace and happiness, it spreads out and touches everyone you interact with.
And that takes us back to Harry's story. Remember, we left him at the hospital, all anxious, waiting to hear about his wife?
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, it's interesting how Gaur Gopal Das uses Harry's story throughout the book to weave in different themes and show how these principles play out in real situations.
Right.
So
what happens to Harry?
Well, after a really tense wait, Harry finds out that Lolita's not sick at all.
Oh.
In fact, she's got a bad case of morning sickness.
Oh, wow. So all that worry and fear was for?
A really good reason Lolita's pregnant.
Oh, wow. What a twist. It's like life's way of reminding us that even when things are tough and uncertain, there's always hope, always the possibility of joy and new beginnings.
And that unexpected news, it brings Harry so much relief, gratitude, and this deep sense of connection. It really shows the transformative power of embracing all 4 wheels of life.
His journey of personal growth, his commitment to his relationship, his desire to find purpose in his work, it's all led up to this moment.
Yeah, it's like all the lessons he learned have come together in this beautiful, unexpected blessing.
It really underlines the power of patience. Trusting that even when things seem difficult or confusing, there's a bigger plan unfolding.
It reminds us that life's full of surprises, and those surprises can sometimes be the greatest gifts.
So as we close our deep dive into life's amazing secrets, we're left with a feeling of hope, inspiration, and this renewed commitment to living a life that reflects our values, our purpose, our deepest desires.
And remember, just like Harry, you've got the power to create that balance, to guide your life towards greater happiness, fulfillment, and purpose.
Keep learning, keep growing, keep those wheels turning, and until next time, keep diving deep.